Have you ever had a book just fall down from heaven and answer your prayers? Have you ever just like wanted a very specific thing to happen, not just in a specific book, but in any book? You just had like a thing that you wanted to just happen in any possible book at all, and you were just like dying for this thing to happen in a book, and then that book out of nowhere just like fell into your lap? That book is Pumpkinheads! What's up, my fellow small business supporters? It's Savvy, your gay aunt from the 80s, back with another video. This video today is going to have 3 parts. First, we're going to do a story time. Second, we're going to be doing a spoiler-free book review. And third, we will go into the spoilers. Don't worry, I will give you ample warning before we go into the spoilers, so you won't have to be shocked. The spoiler part isn't coming for a while anyway, so you can just like sit back and relax, because I'm about to tell you the story of the time I met Rainbow Rowell, one of the coolest humans ever, and how I asked her a question at a Q&A, and how she blew my fucking mind. I was out supporting 2 of my favorite Chicago small businesses. One is a bookstore called The Bookseller. I love them, not just because they're an amazing store, but also because they supported my small business as the Forever Home Friends when in July they featured the Forever Home Friends at their local author night. So I got to present to a wonderful crowd of people, and they now stock the Forever Home Friends books in their store. So they are a wonderful small business who supports wonderful small businesses, and it warms my heart. Additionally, the other small business I was supporting was Everybody's Coffee, which is a coffee shop right here in my neighborhood in Chicago. It's very close to my home. I hope I didn't dox myself. But a reason that I love Everybody's Coffee is not just because the coffee shop is amazing, but also because I hosted my Forever Home Friends Happy Holidays party there last December, which was awesome. So this is an all-around beneficial relationship that everyone has. It's all small businesses supporting other small businesses. I like small businesses if you haven't gathered that yet somehow. So because Bookseller is physically like a very tiny store, and because Everybody's Coffee is like not just a coffee shop, it's also kind of like a co-op kind of place, and also has like a party room and a conference room and a giant auditorium. Like, it's still a coffee shop. Just don't think too hard about it. That's how it is. So when the Bookseller brings in big name authors that they think are going to draw like a massive crowd, they'll usually partner up with Everybody's Coffee and host it in their giant auditorium room. So I was going to Rainbow Rowell's book signing, which was located at Everybody's Coffee and was hosted by the Bookseller, so they were selling her books. So I got to support 2 of my favorite small businesses at the same time. It was amazing. So obviously, when I heard that Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks were going to be going on tour together for their new book Pumpkinheads, and we're going to show up at a coffee shop that's literally in my neighborhood and is one of my favorite places, guys, I was so there, it wasn't even funny. While I was there, I also got Rainbow Rowell to sign my copy of Carry On. Look, she did it in like this beautiful metallic marker. And also I got this book plate for Wayward Son, which is coming out later in the month, and it says like student name Simon Snow, and it's cute because it's like as if it's a book that's from that universe. I just think that's adorable. So I was super excited about this. But onto their presentation and Q&A, when I asked Rainbow Rowell a question about Wayward Son, and I did not get the answer I expected. So everyone knows, you know, the book's called Carry On, the sequel's called Wayward Son. There's a song by Kansas called Carry On, Wayward Son. That's like common knowledge. Like, I think that like that's the reference. So I have been just like enamored with this for a while, because right, like if you look at this first page, you were the sun and I was crashing into you. That's what it says, and that's a quote from the book. And constantly in the book, there's this topic of like, am I flying too close to the sun? Like, am I getting too close to a thing? But it's also somewhat literal, because Simon as a character, when he radiates magic, it's very like, it includes heat, like physical heat. So he's very warm, and then Baz is a vampire who is naturally cold. So it's like, there's hot and cold, right? There's getting too close to the sun and to the heat and the temptation that goes along with that, because they're also enemies. Then there's Carry On as the title and Wayward Son as the title, and I was just like, holy shit. Okay, if you guys knew me in middle school, I was one of those hipster kids who was like, I like classic rock, I'm so quirky. So my friends and I would just like, instead of like talking about middle school gossip, which is way more interesting. We would sit down at lunch and be like, hey, let's discuss the ways that Kansas used the Icarus and Daedalus myth in the song Carry On, Wayward Son, and how classic rock actually has to do with mythology. It was like, we were like that. So when I read this, I was like, that's beautiful, right? Because it's like crashing into the sun, and then the titles reference a pop culture song that references a myth about flying too close to the sun. And I was like, this is genius. Like, I love this. So during the Q&A, I raised my hand. I described this whole thing to her, right? So I was like, okay, so I was wondering.
The titles, Carry On, Wayward Son, are they meant to refer to, like, how in the Kansas song, it references the Icarus and Daedalus myth, which is about flying too close to the sun, and the books also have, like, you were the sun and I was crashing into you. Like, is that the reference, like, an Easter egg? Is that what it's supposed to be?
And you know what she said? She said, actually, that was a coincidence. What the fuck? Right? Okay, she was like, I just named them Carry On and Wayward Son because I thought that would be funny, which honestly, that, like, it's funny when people do things just because it's funny, so I was like, mad respect. But I was also like, what? How do you come up with something that beautiful on accident? How? Like, I can't come up with things that cool on purpose. How do you do that without trying? What? So I was just like, and I didn't know how to process this because honestly, I have a similar question for John Green, and now I'm worried that I'm gonna get the same answer. So, quick. John Green, if you're watching this video, which I know you're not. In the book An Abundance of Catherines, which was published in 2006, the main character stops at a tourist site which is supposedly the burial ground of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and while he's there, he meets a girl named Lindsay Wells. Right? And if you guys have read An Abundance of Catherines, this book is full of puzzles and Easter eggs and little hidden things that you're like, whoa, that's cool. Okay? But in the year 2006, the band Franz Ferdinand released a song called Lindsay Wells.
Lindsay Wells, oh, I wish that I could feel so good. I wish that I could be as good as you. Oh, Lindsay Wells.
And I was like, is that another Easter egg? Was that something hidden in there? Because I've never heard anyone talking about this. And I have never been to a John Green book signing, but I'm just like chomping at the bit to ask him this question. And now that I've had that answer, I'm going to be like, that was a coincidence too, wasn't it? I know why these people are famous now, because they can make coincidences just happen. They're just that amazing. But other than that, Rainbow Rowell was incredibly cool. Faith Erin Hicks, who's the illustrator of the graphic novel Pumpkinheads, she's incredibly cool also. I'm using my Star Trek mug. That's fun. Okay, because they were also talking about how what they first connected on before writing a book was how they both love Data from Star Trek. And I was like, oh, me too, I love Data from Star Trek. And I like audibly cheered really loud in the crowd, and like no one else did. And I was like, wow, I probably look like a huge nerd, but we're all at a book signing. So like, I think that ship sailed. Anyway, let's move on to the spoiler-free review of Pumpkinheads. Okay, graphic novels smell amazing. Pumpkinheads is a very cute story about two friends named Deja and Josiah. The two of them are very close friends, and they work at a pumpkin patch together and have for their entire time in high school. They're graduating and about to go on to college and not work at this pumpkin patch anymore, and Deja decides that for their last night together, instead of just doing their job like Josiah loves to do because he's very uptight and likes to win Employee of the Month and all that, she decides, what if instead we went on an adventure, we explored all the parts of the pumpkin patch that we hadn't before, and we just like had the night of our lives. And he's a little reluctant at first, but eventually, obviously, they go on an adventure. This book is just like fall vibes in a book. Those of you who know me know I am so ready for fall, it's not even funny, and this book delivered. Also, let's just look at how cute some of this artwork is. I absolutely love it. The characters are adorable. I will say the plot is fairly simple. So if you're looking for a book with like major complex themes and like crazy plot twists and like tons of stuff happening, like you're not gonna find it here. It's probably surprising that I even have a spoiler section for this video, but that's because there's a thing that happens at the end that I don't want to reveal in this part because I don't want to ruin it for you while you're reading it. But I really need to talk about that part because like it's like eating away at me, like I need to talk about it. But yeah, this book's plot is not that difficult. Like, it's two friends going on an adventure throughout the pumpkin patch where they work. It's taking it like the last night before you take the next step in your life, and it's not anything crazy. They stay within the pumpkin patch and they're a place where they work the entire time. Lots of things happen, but there's nothing like big or shocking, you know? It's not like a huge catastrophe happens. It's very like slice of life and down to earth. But it's also very cute. It like captures a lot of those cute and fun and exciting moments in everyday life that we don't always appreciate. So I really quite enjoyed this. And for anyone who's like, I'm ready to drink my pumpkin spice lattes and put my scarf on, bitches, like, you also are ready to read Pumpkinheads and you won't be disappointed. Alright, spoiler section incoming. This isn't like, I don't think this is that much of a spoiler because I feel like everyone saw it coming from a mile away in this book, but like, if you don't want any spoilers about this book, just stop watching right here. Like, go do something else because I'm gonna tell you what happens in this book. Alright, I'm giving you a fair warning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Remember when I went on this rant on Twitter? And when I did this video, and it almost feels like some authors might feel trapped that if you want to have like an LGBT novel, that you can't have a male and female couple end up together at the end. Which you can. I very rarely, and if you guys have any recommendations for me, drop them in the comments below, please. Because it feels like, you know, a lot of bisexual people end up with somebody who's a different gender than them. That's what happens a lot of the time. It seems like a lot of books and movies and media, they're like, oh, this is an LGBT romance and we want to market it that way, therefore the bisexual character cannot end up, like this man cannot end up with a woman at the end, or else it's a straight romance. Which shows that like everything's still kind of in boxes. And I said these things. Well, my friends, Pumpkinheads is it! Deja, the incredibly adorable female protagonist of this book, who it's made very clear throughout the book has had relationships with both men and with women in the past, ends up with her male best friend, Josiah, who is perfect for her! The whole time I was reading this, like, at the beginning, I was like, these two have some chemistry between them. I wonder if they're gonna end up together. And then you get introduced to one of Deja's exes, who's a girl, and I'm like, okay, I mean, it's possible she's gay, and I'm like, or is she gonna be the bisexual protagonist who ends up with their different gender best friend, just like I've been dying to have? Is that gonna happen? Is that gonna happen? And then you see the next ex she runs into, who's a guy, and I'm like, holy shit, she likes men. Maybe she likes Josiah. Maybe the two of them could end up together. And like throughout the whole book, Josiah is interested in this other girl who works there. Her name's Marcy. He's like trying to gather up the courage to talk to her for the first time. But part of me was like, he'll eventually talk to her, right? It's gonna be like one of those 80s movie tropes where like he'll talk to her, but they won't actually be right for each other because they don't really know each other. He's never really talked to her. She's just kind of like a dream in his mind. So he'll meet her and they won't actually click, and then when they're leaving it's gonna hit him that like, what if he and Deja were perfect for each other? And I'm like, fucking happens. This isn't even a thing where like, yeah, the ending was predictable or whatever, but like, it wasn't entirely predictable because let me tell you, the bisexual protagonist almost never ends up with their opposite gender best friend. It just doesn't happen in most books. Like, it just doesn't happen.
Because then a lot of people are like, oh, that shit's queer baiting, and then I get mad because I'm like, no, you saying it's queer baiting is bisexual erasure because I married my opposite gender best friend and I love Tyler so much, he's great.
I was like holding out hope, and I guess that makes the ending less predictable because I was like, I'm really hoping this happens, but there's a chance it won't. Maybe Josiah will end up with Marcy, maybe Deja will end up with Marcy, I don't fucking know. No, Deja and Josiah are perfect and they end up together and they're so goddamn cute, I could die. I am literally running out of breath right now, so I need to wrap up this review. There's not that much to go into because it's a pretty short book, but I highly recommend reading this. Please let me know what you guys think of Pumpkinheads in the description below. I will be back again soon. In the meantime though, don't forget to support your local bookstore, your local coffee shop, your local friend who sells art and books and shit online. Don't forget to support small businesses. Happy reading, friends.